Hello, dear YouTube viewers. I hope you're doing well. Okay, let's start our video. It's a warm weekend evening, and the narrator, the husband, is hosting a lively house party with his wife. They are known among friends and neighbors as the couple who always brings people together, smiling and united, the kind of hosts who make everyone feel welcome. The house is full of familiar faces, old friends catching up, co-workers sharing stories, neighbors laughing over drinks, and even a few guests the husband doesn't recognize well but assumes his wife invited. The atmosphere is cheerful and vibrant. Music plays softly in the background, blending with the sound of chatter and bursts of laughter. The scent of barbecue or catered food drifts through the rooms, giving the party a warm, festive feel. But beneath all this brightness, the husband feels something else, something he can't quite name. He hints that he has sensed tension in his wife for weeks, a small but persistent shift in her behavior that he tried to ignore. As he watches her move through the crowd, he can't help thinking back to their early years together. How they met, the spark between them, the dreams they built as a couple. But recently, something has been different. She has been taking late-night phone calls in the other room. He has noticed her deleting messages quickly. Whenever he tries to bring up serious conversations, she changes the subject or insists she's just tired from work. He wonders if it's stress, pressure from her job, or something deeper that she doesn't want to talk about. And though he tries to reassure himself, that strange feeling returns when he notices one particular guest, someone he can't identify but feels oddly uneasy about, as if this person plays a role in the tension he cannot yet understand. A little later into the evening, more guests begin to arrive, and the energy of the party shifts in a subtle but noticeable way. One of the first to enter is a charismatic coworker of the wife, confident, charming, the kind of person who immediately becomes the center of any conversation. He greets the wife a little too warmly, and though the husband tries not to read into it, the interaction lingers in his mind. Another close friend arrives as well, someone who knows the couple's relationship almost as well as they do. This friend watches the wife with curiosity, picking up on details others might miss. Then a mysterious couple walks through the door, people the husband has never met. The wife introduces them quickly but seems nervous as she does, offering only vague explanations about how she knows them. As the party continues, awkward moments begin to surface. The wife looks unusually tense for someone hosting a gathering she planned. She keeps glancing around the room as if waiting for something or someone to arrive. At one point, the husband catches her whispering urgently with someone in the hallway, her voice low and hurried. When he asks if everything is all right, she forces a smile and brushes it off. Meanwhile, some guests notice the tension but assume it's just the usual chaos of hosting a big event. The husband's uneasiness grows. While refilling drinks near the kitchen, he overhears fragments of a conversation close by, just a few words, but enough to make his stomach twist. "Did you tell him yet?" And, "He deserves to know." The voices fall silent when he steps closer, replaced by awkward smiles. He feels a wave of anxiety building inside him, but he forces himself to stay calm, reminding himself that he is the host and needs to keep the atmosphere pleasant, at least on the surface. As the evening progresses, the atmosphere shifts again, but this time, more sharply. During a casual group conversation in the living room, someone jokingly brings up the idea that parties always hold secrets waiting to spill. The comment is lighthearted, and the guests laugh without thinking twice. But the husband notices something no one else seems to catch. His wife freezes instantly. Her smile vanishes, her eyes widen slightly, and her hands tighten around the glass she's holding. It's only a moment, but it feels like a crack forming in the middle of the room. From then on, the signs become impossible to ignore. She starts pacing near the kitchen, moving back and forth with restless, jittery energy. Whenever the husband approaches, she turns away or pretends to be busy, avoiding his eyes as if terrified of what he might read in them. The charismatic coworker stays close to her, hovering protectively, which only heightens the husband's unease. A close friend tries to guide her to a quieter corner, whispering something meant to comfort her, but the wife pulls away sharply and shakes her head. Watching all of this, the husband's mind spirals into confusion. He feels his chest tighten with a mix of fear and frustration. Questions swirl relentlessly. Had she fallen out of love with him? Was she hiding something so big that she couldn't even look him in the eye? Why did she seem on the verge of breaking, like a person holding a secret so heavy it might burst out at any second? He tries to steady himself, telling his racing heart to slow down, but deep inside, he knows the truth. Something enormous is coming, and nothing about this night is going to end the way he expected. The tension finally snaps in the most unexpected way. In the middle of the living room, with nearly all the guests gathered around, someone playfully nudges the wife and says, "Come on, tell us the big surprise." The comment is meant as a joke, something harmless to keep the mood light, but the moment those words leave the guest's mouth, the wife's entire expression collapses. Her face drains of color, her shoulders stiffen, and she looks as if the ground has suddenly dropped beneath her feet. Before anyone can react, she steps forward with trembling hands, her voice cracking under the weight of whatever she's been hiding. Then, in a raw burst of emotion that silences the entire room, she screams, "Yes, we're sleeping together, and he never saw it coming." The music keeps playing behind them, suddenly sounding out of place, as if unaware of the emotional explosion that just went off. Every conversation dies instantly. Glasses stop halfway to people's lips. A few guests gasp loudly. Someone drops a drink, the shatter echoing through the stunned silence. The husband stands completely frozen, his mind blank, unable to process the words that just came out of his wife's mouth. Around him, whispers spread like wildfire as guests exchange wide-eyed looks, murmuring in disbelief. All eyes shift between the wife and the charismatic coworker standing nearby, and the assumption forms instantly. She's confessing to an affair, right in the middle of their own house, at their own party. The husband feels the room tilt around him, but he's too shocked to speak, too stunned to even breathe. The night has spiraled into something he could never have imagined. For a moment, the husband can only stand there, the shock hitting him like a physical blow. Then, as the meaning of her words sinks deeper, anger surges through him. Hot, sharp, and overwhelming. But just as quickly as it rises, it fades into a heavy numbness that makes it hard for him to even form a sentence. When he finally manages to speak, his voice comes out strained as he demands an explanation. Before he can get more than a few words out, his wife breaks down completely, collapsing into tears, unable to say anything coherent. The guests, unsure whether to stay or slip away, begin to drift toward the door or step outside to give them space. The chaos only grows worse. The coworker steps forward and tries to say something, but the husband snaps at him to stay away. The wife's best friend rushes in, trying to calm both sides, but the husband can barely hear anything through the storm inside his mind. His thoughts spin in every direction, images of betrayal, lies, and months of secrecy swirling together until he can't tell what's real and what he's imagining. Everything he feared is suddenly crashing down on him at once. Through her sobs, the wife desperately tries to speak. She keeps shaking her head, insisting that the situation isn't what everyone thinks. Her voice is trembling, barely holding together as she begs him to come with her to a quieter room, somewhere away from the eyes and whispers of the guests. She tells him there is more to the story, something important, something she should have shared long before this moment. She pleads with him to listen, her tears falling faster, hoping he will give her one chance to explain the truth behind her shocking outburst. Once they step into a quieter room and the door closes behind them, the wife struggles to catch her breath through her tears. When she finally speaks, her voice is soft and shaking, but her words come out with a desperate urgency. She tells him it isn't an affair, not romantic, not physical, not anything close to what everyone in the living room assumed. Instead, she has been secretly caring for someone who needed her help, not out of love or desire, but out of responsibility and compassion. When she said they were sleeping together, she meant only that they were sharing a room. Nothing more, because the person she was helping couldn't sleep alone, not with the trauma, the nightmares, or the fear they were battling. Then comes the reveal, the part she dreaded the most. She explains who she has been hiding. Maybe it's her younger brother or cousin, someone who has been struggling with severe panic attacks, addiction withdrawal, or crippling nightmares. She didn't want to burden her husband with the stress or force him into an uncomfortable situation, so she hid the fact that her relative had been secretly staying in their home at night while he slept. Or perhaps it's a close female friend who is escaping an abusive partner, someone who needed a safe place more than anything. The he in her outburst wasn't the husband at all. It referred to the violent ex who didn't know where she was hiding. She had promised to protect her friend and didn't know how to explain the situation without putting her at risk. Or maybe the truth is tied to someone they both know, a person suffering from severe PTSD, someone who physically cannot fall asleep alone without spiraling into panic. Only the wife knew the full extent of the issue, and she had promised to keep it confidential, even though it meant hiding the situation from her own husband. Whichever version of the truth it is, the reason behind her explosive confession becomes painfully clear. The pressure of keeping the secret had been crushing her. She had been juggling fear, guilt, loyalty, and exhaustion for weeks, and she couldn't hold it in any longer. The casual joke earlier in the evening pushed her past her breaking point. Surrounded by people and cornered by emotions she didn't know how to manage, she panicked and let the truth burst out in the worst possible way, loud, messy, and devastating. Hearing the truth leaves the husband overwhelmed with a strange mix of emotions. Relief washes over him first, relief that she hadn't betrayed him, relief that their marriage wasn't falling apart in the way he feared. But that relief is quickly followed by guilt for assuming the worst about her and for letting his imagination spiral out of control. Alongside guilt, there is a painful ache, the realization that she didn't trust him enough to share the burden earlier. He feels conflicted, unsure how to feel about the person she's been helping and about the secrecy she wrapped around the situation. Once both of them calm down enough to talk, a difficult but necessary conversation begins. They speak honestly about the cracks that had formed in their communication. She admits that she was terrified he wouldn't support her decision, especially since it involved risk, secrecy, and emotional strain. She didn't want to add more pressure to his life or give him reason to worry. The husband listens quietly, letting her words sink in, and then he tells her that he wishes she had given him the chance to stand by her, even if the situation was complicated. He promises that going forward, they will rebuild trust together, with openness and understanding at the center. As the emotional storm settles, they sit close, wiping away tears and sharing a long moment of reflection. They talk about how stress, fear, and silence slowly push them apart without either of them realizing it. In that quiet room, away from the noise of the party, the husband finally pulls her into his arms, holding her tightly. For the first time in weeks, he sees not the tension and secrecy she's been carrying, but the weight of responsibility she shouldered alone. And in that embrace, both of them feel the beginning of a renewed connection, fragile, honest, and real. After the emotional storm has quieted and the truth is finally out between them, the couple steps back into the aftermath of the party. Some guests return hesitantly, unsure if it's safe to come inside again, while others send messages from outside or from home, asking what on earth happened. The husband and wife exchange a weary look and agree to keep their explanation simple. They tell everyone that there was a misunderstanding and that it was a private matter, one they would prefer not to discuss in detail. Most guests accept this, relieved the situation is resolving. Once the house begins to clear out and only a few people linger, the husband takes a moment to approach the coworker or friend he had snapped at earlier. With genuine remorse, he apologizes for misjudging them and for reacting out of shock. The coworker accepts it, understanding how the situation must have felt. The wife also offers her own apologies to those who witnessed the outburst. She acknowledges that she handled things poorly and hid too much for too long, promising that it wasn't anyone else's fault that the night turned chaotic. In the days that follow, the couple begins to rebuild from the emotional collapse. They talk openly about attending counseling or finding ways to strengthen their communication before misunderstandings can grow into crises. Surprisingly, the ordeal brings them closer. They feel a new depth in their connection, a recognition of vulnerabilities they both kept hidden, and a renewed determination to support each other with honesty and empathy. What began as a night of confusion ends as a turning point, guiding them toward a more honest and resilient marriage. Looking back, the husband reflects on the most shocking night of his life, realizing that what initially felt like the end of everything had, in fact, become a turning point. He understands now that even well-intentioned secrets can erode trust, no matter how noble the reason for keeping them. He learns that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a necessity in a marriage, that sharing fears, burdens, and uncertainties is what allows love to endure. And most importantly, he sees that love can survive almost anything when the truth is faced openly, no matter how messy or uncomfortable it might be. As he sits quietly beside his wife, he realizes that the chaos of the night was not the end, but a beginning. That night, he thinks, our house party fell apart, but our marriage finally began again. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please subscribe our channel, Awesome Visual Story.